change needs to be done. So in this case, the fair printing fees bill, what it basically says is everyone that pays the $30 printing fee or the IT print allocation fee a semester plus the fee for the summer, you get to print, prints from Blocker, any OAL computer, which stands for Open Access Lab, so SDC, Blocker, I think the core lounges, etc. And what became a problem is that you can't print off the block printer, right? So if you're going to print, let's say, $10 worth like a new movie poster or a poster for a presentation, right? That's worth $10. It doesn't get deducted from the $30 account. It gets charged on top of that. So let's say you never printed anything except for that $10. You have to pay $10 rather than it being deducted from your $30 that you already paid for. And so this kind of solves that issue by making anything that you print included in that. And that's my presentation.
Yes. Okay. The first question goes to Chairman.
Parliamentary academic affairs. So sorry, apologies if I'm getting too specific. Does this affect the large paper, like 11 by 17 sheets, or only plotter prints, which are the giant?
It affects anything glossy. So the only thing that's included in the $30 is black and white on standard 8 by 11 or 8 by 17, I believe.
Next up is Senator Gina.
Senator Phil off campus. I worked at the IT desk in the College of Architecture. I know that they do all of their printing allocations by credit card. And as I understand, that affects their budgeting and the way that they charge the students in the College of Architecture. If we included this printing, how that would change our print application, how much we charge for those things?
The thing is, so this doesn't account for departmental printing. I know, like, I guess, College of Architecture, I guess they don't allocate you prints because it's not an OAL print lab, I believe. I know Patrol Engineering gets 1,000 prints. So I don't think this will affect you, but it will affect you. Let's say you want to go and print it in SEC, you would still have to pay. So rather than, let's say, the first $30 you print it in the architecture labs, you can come print it in the SEC and save $30.
Can I follow up? Or?
Yes, you can.
So I guess I'm asking, would that increase that $30 amount because the specialized printing oftentimes can exceed that? But like if you do like a large 12 box and out there, it could exceed that $30 if you do like
Oh yeah. So it could exceed the $30, and what would happen is once it exceeds the $30, then you pay out of pocket versus pay out of pocket immediately. So basically, you're gonna get what you're worth. You're gonna get your money's worth for what you paid.
Just one last quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would it be possible to make it optional to charge on that $30 or charge on the personal account?
I don't think that option is out there. I don't see why you want to pay out of pocket first.
Do I know, like, it just in terms of fees for, like, just for example, we may end up seeing something like a request to increase that $30 because you do some specialized printing and we always see black and white or something like that. So make sure you save it for the black and white printing and then just for the specialized and credit cards. I don't think it may have my fees. Just,
Okay.
Does that question answer? Seeing none, it does. We'll now move to the period of debate. Is there any debate against this vote? Seeing none, the chair deems debate one sided, and we will now move into a period of voting. So once again, vote. Yes. And we've already started voting.
Oh, wait, sorry? Oh, crap. Boom, brother.
Yes, we are voting right now. Yeah.
You haven't talked yet. You better say something. You have to. Are you a little overwhelmed? Huh? Are they watching you?
I told them.
Nice.
Howdy!
Better-
Okay, so there are 9 fewer people who have voted this time, or 10 fewer people who voted this time than voted last time. So make absolutely sure you have voted, because we are still missing a few. So we'll probably close vote in about 30 seconds. Batteries? No, are you out of batteries? I go off. So you can turn that. Okay, so we're assigning you to new winners from the parties. So we have what's Alright, is that Okay, by a vote of 58 in favor, 1 against, with 1 abstention, this bill passes. Okay, we will now move into new business. Okay, so the way new business works is we're not taking votes on any bills that are presented at this time. I will call out a bill, and it is considered read by consent. Now, if you hear a presentation from the bill author on the bill, any senator can raise the placard and just ask that it is pulled down for a presentation. If not, it'll just I will assign it to a committee and it's done with, and you'll see it again maybe in 2 weeks or whenever the committee decides to bring it forward. So with that, the first bill in new business is the increased awareness of online teaching evaluation bill. Are there any objections to considering that read? Please send it to me. If you just have a question, then you would have to pull down the bill and ask the question during the presentation. So, okay, you do want to pull it down? Okay, so that has been pulled down, and the Texas A&M Personal Protection Bill. So that has been pulled down as well. So both of those will receive presentations. First up, Chair.
Howdy.
Howdy.
So yes. So we have been talking about teaching evaluations and making them available online, and come to find out that these teaching evaluations that you do at the end of every semester, the results of those are actually available online. And I don't think anyone actually knows that, except the few administrators that are complying with the state law that mandates that they put it online. The problem is that a lot of professors and administrators don't want students to see these evaluations because they don't like them or whatever, but the state is mandating that they put them online. We want to make them more visible to students, and that's the purpose behind this bill. Questions?
All right, so are there any questions? Senator Garcia.
Senator Garcia, has there been like discussion with the administrators so far about this?
About the bill specifically, I don't think so. We have talked with administrators, talked with Mark Troy, Director of Data and Research, Measurement and Research, whichever. And he's the one that told us about the evaluations being available. He told us, he had to tell us, give us step-by-step directions on how to get to these evaluations.
He even admitted it was really hard for him to find.
Not only was it hard to find, it was also extremely confusing. It was like the back button didn't work once you got actually into the system. The back button didn't work, and totally bugged you out, and you had to start from the very, very beginning. So not only was it confusing, but you had to know how to work it. So I mean, all of us are acting basically, we all strive for solve 20-25 minutes and finally got it. So.
There is one other senator with a question, Senator Owens.
Senator Owens, the Lord. So I guess I'm just asking, as far as like the interface that you're referring to, what does it look like when you go? Does it show the average of the grades that they were given, that it showed the extra comments, stuff like
It
that?
doesn't show you comments, it only shows you basically the bubbles.
Okay. Okay.
The averages. There's no one's specific, sorry. Sorry, let's see.
Just a question. Do you intend to send this bill anyone? Because I didn't notice when you applied it, you're going to send it to indicate.
Right, I don't believe that we're actually required to add that, but I think we will have to maybe once we figure out who it's in.
Okay.
But in any case, I think the speaker will send it to her. Well, I don't know. Senator Cheshire.
Fair Gentile, so would this be like based on their syllabus or their CV when they're registering classes?
We'd like to put it on the syllabus. I think the biggest thing that we can do is put it on Howdy next to where you are looking for the classes, where it says use the class code. You teach your evaluation. The best. The syllabus is good. There's a bunch of bureaucratic groups that we'll probably have to go through to get that.
That's something that's
It's the first step. But it's on the table. Sure.
I may be wrong, but I recall that when I checked it, if you go back to view classes from the previous semester, that's where it's currently located.
All right, are there any further questions? Seeing none, this was referred to the active affairs committee. Next up is the Texas A&M personal protection bill. Moving on to consent.
Howdy!
Howdy!
All right, my name is Gary Bedford, I'm the chairman of the affairs in the Law Center. What I have for you today is the personal protection bill. This is just a bill to make it easier for people to defend themselves on the Texas A&M campus, which our current policy and current law does not really allow for very well. I think it's good. It's still a work in progress. We're going to amend it to make it better. But I don't know, you can all read it. You can all decide for yourself. So, questions?
First question, Speaker Fernandez.
Speaker Fernandez. I just have one question. Do you know the result of last year's referendum which addressed this issue? If so, could you please state those numbers?
I do not know the result of last year's referendum. I believe there was a referendum 2 years ago.
Was that
Speaker, do you know the results of the
Yes,
referendum?
there was a referendum held 2 years ago on this issue. It was 46% in favor and 54% against. Chair,
I mean, you already know that the student senate does not have oversight over gun laws. So, are you hoping to get this to the state legislator, or who makes the final decisions? Is it Lofton, or is it?
There are certain decisions that Lofton makes, and there are certain decisions that the states make, that the state legislature makes. So it's sort of both, kind of.
first look at the Senator Russo.
Senator Russo off campus. So if I'm correct, then the intention is for this bill, should it pass the Senate, be signed into SGA law by the student body president, to go as part of the legislative agenda when we lobby in Austin, correct?
That is correct. Stephen
Okay.
Prager and the rest of his lobbying team will take this with them to lobby on behalf of Texas A&M and the student senate on this bill and all the other ones that we pass.
Cool, thanks.
All right, Speaker Fernandez.
So if the student body is obviously against it, why are we using the student senate to lobby on behalf of them in Austin? If they're against it.
Two things. I don't think that the entirety of the student body voted in that referendum, and I don't think that constitutional rights are held up for votes.
Was not, let me make sure this is a question, was not around half of the campus not even attending this university 2 years ago?
I would probably say it would be more than half.
More than half,
That
a little bit.
sounds about right.
Point of reference, are we getting close to venturing into debate right now, and really this is not the time for that? That'll have to do with
Yeah, that's me, I'll tell you, yeah.
That's up. Okay, next. Next up for question and answer, though, I believe was Senator Knapp. What? You had a question for question and answer.
Withdrawn.
Okay, student movements.
So if the issue is that maybe the entire student body wasn't represented or half of it, and that it was too long ago, why not have another referendum? Where the result pass the bill without the opinion or with the student body behind it.
I believe that the student senate is the official voice of the students' text. I think that's why, we're here.
All right, now Senator McNutt has a
Okay,
question.
I remember, okay, I hate, you believe the spirit of the bill that the rights of a minority opinion should be dictated by the opinion of the majority? Do you think the majority can just take away the rights of the minority in the majority?
No, like I said, in nations of law, which we are, rights are not held up to popular vote. I mean, there are lots of unpopular things to say that, the majority of Texas A&M would be against you running around saying Osama bin Laden is the greatest guy ever, but you still have the right to say it.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? Seeing none, this bill is referred to the Legislative Affairs Committee. All right, we will now move into open session. So what open session is this is an opportunity for anyone to add items to the agenda, whatever items they like. Normally they're bills for business. I have 3 items. Okay, can I was actually going to introduce mine first. Sit down. So anyway, I actually have an item for open session that I wanted to introduce as a new bill, and my intention is for this to also be voted on as emergency legislation tonight. So I'm going to sit down and describe it. It should have already been sent out, but what it is, and again, the process here is that I described it in a couple of sentences. So we take a vote on whether to add it to the agenda or not, and then after that we'll decide what to do with it. But it is governing the selection process used within SGA to determine candidates for student region. And the reason I think this is important is because I want a process in writing for this. I want it to be fair, open, and transparent, and I want to make sure that this process is completed as far as what it is before we actually start receiving applications and undergoing the selection. So with that, I'm asking you to add this to the agenda for this meeting so I can present it as new business. So that concludes my brief presentation.
Regarding this the agenda?
Aye.
Against? Okay.
Point of parliamentary procedure. So that's actually going to Speaker Fernandez. Point of parliamentary procedure. So we have added this to the agenda. Is this now designated as emergency legislation, or is that a separate motion?
Separate motion.
Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. So what this bill does, first of all, how many of you are aware of the position of student region? Okay. So I see a lot of people who are not. We heard from Regent Schwartner today. So he is one of the 9 members of the Board of Regents. However, there is a 10th member of the Board of Regents who does not have voting privileges, but goes to all of the meetings, does everything a regent does except vote, and is tasked with communicating with the different system schools. So every year, they come from a different system school. And 2 years ago, the student regent, another student who was still here, or last year, the student regent was a guy named Fernando Trevino, and so he is no longer the student regent. The current student regent is from A&M Kingsville. Next year, the position will have the opportunity to come back to Texas A&M University again, so that position is taking applications. And the way that process is supposed to work is that if you're interested in that position, you apply to SGA. SGA has a process for determining who our best candidates are, and then we forward those to the chancellor, who forwards them to the governor's office, and Governor Perry makes an appointment for student regent. All of the system schools do that, and he picks who, in his opinion, is the best one from all of the schools. So, however, in years past, we have conducted a process. It's been different every year we've done it, and what has happened is that after that process was concluded, either the chancellor or the governor's office or whoever did not choose any of the members that SGA recommended, but they still chose a student from Texas A&M. So, and the reason I believe for that is that in past years, this has not been a transparent process, that this has not been an open process, and it's not been in writing what was actually done. I know 2 years ago, the student body president chose his vice president as one of the nominees for the position. And things like that happen a lot, and so I'm trying to prevent any kind of political influence this year. I'm trying to make sure that this is a fair process and that it is open to any student. So what this bill requires, and if we can scroll down, we need that increase. So what this bill requires is that that a committee composed of the following 5 people is put together to evaluate applications for the position: the student body president, the vice president for legislative relations, the speaker of the Senate, myself, the chair of legislative relations, and the chief justice. So the 5 of us would get together and evaluate all of the applications, interview candidates, and choose who, in our opinion, were the top 2 students who were most qualified and most likely to make it past the next stage and actually be appointed student regent. Now we would also forward along all of the applications because I'm told that that is something the chancellor's office usually asks for. And this would also require a campus-wide email to be sent out so that everyone knew this position was open, and that this bill, so the entire process would be published on the website so everyone would know exactly who they were applying to and how this decision was going to be made. So the reason I want this to be emergency legislation is because this process actually starts November 1st. So if we wait 2 weeks until October 31st to pass this bill, and then we wait another several days for it to maybe or maybe not be signed, then we've already entered into the process before we have it even in writing. And I don't think that's appropriate. I want to make sure that, that before we even get started, we already know what our application process is going to be. So that is why I'm asking that this be added to the agenda as emergency legislation. But I think the period for question and answer comes first, and so I would encourage you to ask any questions you have about this.
Any questions? Sarah Wilson?
Oh, not sure. Okay. Sir Woolsey, Northside. Would this be a position that Senate would have to confirm?
No.
No? Okay.
Senator Kiss?
Senator Tim, engineering. Can you tell us like what the timeline for this process would be like after this is passed?
Yes. Okay, so the timeline is, and this is according to the Texas A&M system. They have these guidelines on their website, and you can look at them. They provide the application, and they provide the qualifications for who can actually apply. So on November 1st, the process must be already started. So we have to begin soliciting applications before then. By January 1st, our selections have to be made and submitted to the chancellor. And then I believe it is by February 1st that the governor's office will start making appointments, and the term actually begins on June 1st for the new student regent.
How long?
Well, there's another question. We'll come back to.
If you're about to ask how long is the term for a student regent, it's 1 year.
Okay, Senator Sir.
Senator Sir, General Studies. I was just wondering, for those of us that aren't familiar with the role, what is the actual student regent's responsibility?
So the student regent's responsibility is to basically be a student representative on the board of regents. So what they will do is they will go to the different schools, talk with usually people in SGAs because they just don't have the ability to talk to random students at every single one. So like I've communicated with the current student regent, and I think a couple of other people in here as well, some people from exec and a couple of people from Senate who have met him and talked with him some. But basically their role is to communicate student opinion directly to the regents. And they do serve as a regent during that time. I mean, it is a full official thing. They don't get to vote, but they basically get to do everything else.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
Yes, so I would like to move to add this to the agenda as an emergency legislation.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we're moving to a period of debate. Any debate against? Seeing none, we're moving to a period of voting. Voice vote? All in favor of putting this item to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All against? Okay. You had it.
Okay, so,
Yes.
okay,
So that is that, that's the bit on that.
Yes. For the, okay. All those, all against? Debate, any debate against?
the bill.
Yes, debate against the bill. Any debate against the bill? None? Okay, so we'll take a vote on the bill. It is a quick vote.
You know, if I had a handle.
Get it. Get it. Hammered, but no.
Oh, no, yeah.
I will offer that. Oh,
She hacked it? What are y'all talking about? Oh, rock. Gotcha. I just heard different things.
There was one that's an thing. And
Gotcha.
so I don't know if it's not coming back just like you said, you keep like your brush, you can brush it. And the one that was an elephant.
Okay, I voted 56 in favor and 1 against, this bill passes. And that will be numbered SB 6518. All right. Okay, we will now move into return to open session. Now, are there any further items for open session? Okay, we will take them one by one. And I will ask that as people take the floor, other senators remain silent so that we can hear what is going on. So, can you go ahead and describe the first bill? So just a quick description so we can decide what you're asking.
All right, howdy.
Howdy.
First bill, I titled the Spanish Placement Exam Extension Deferral Bill, SPEED, and what it does, this was a concern that was brought up to me by Vice President Audie Scott, and she's concerned about the process because students who are already wishing to take introductory level courses for foreign language classes are required to take a placement exam, pay for the placement exam even though they already know that they're taking the introductory level courses for whatever reason. And so this bill calls on administration to waive students who are already wishing to take that exam who are already wishing to take introductory level courses from taking the exam, paying for the exam, when they already know what the exam is. I already talked to the Vice President Brody Smith and also with Vice Scott, of course. And I expect the committee to be able to make some adjustments with the support of Brody Smith and also the Academic Affairs Committee. And that's often very good.
Okay, so that was a very long 2 sentences, but okay, all in favor? All in favor of adding this to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay, given that the chair, that passes.
Point of information real quick, is this just going to committee or is this a committee?
It is just going to committee unless the co-author or anyone else makes a motion otherwise. So before anything can be voted on and considered and debated on that, a motion for emergency legislation has to be voted on. So that has not been done yet.
Is there any debate on whether to add?
It's not a debatable vote, we just take a vote. And I will ask that when we have votes, even if they are kind of out of nowhere like that, please just be resolute in what you're saying so I can kind of tell, because very quiet voice votes lead to awkward results sometimes.
Point of information, can we have this sent out, or is it currently being sent out?
It is being sent out. The bylaws require that all bills that are presented in open session be sent out within, I believe it's 48 hours of the meeting.
Oh,
So I will be sending out all open session legislation with my recap.
Okay, thank you.
But anyway, this will now be number SB 6519, and we have a new business presentation.
Okay. Second bill is NASPO,
Okay, this is still a presentation for the other bill. The reason you only get 2 sentences is because then you get a full presentation period.
Okay. Well, the introduction of the bill is what I already mentioned, so unless anyone has any questions about it.
First question is, why isn't this presented as open?
Because I already had intention to introduce it, but I didn't say about it that night, so I was just going to throw it for open session.
I don't know the question.
We will return to you after. Was it Chair Andrew? You have a question? Someone over here had a question. Senator Wilson.
So what's the north side? Okay, would this only apply to Spanish? Because, I mean, I don't know that much about what they do with foreign languages, but, I mean, would this apply to someone who's like fluent in German or something that came in?
Right now, it's just waiting for the Spanish one because that was their concern. That was
Okay.
And I think the judge was thinking maybe to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Chair Cheshire.
Senator Winslet, Cheshire. Is there like a German placement? Is there or a French placement? I'm only aware of Spanish.
I'm not really, I don't want to say Spanish. But this isn't my concern. This is a concern that was brought up to me. I'm saying this just instead.
All right. Chair Green.
I guess it's more of a suggestion, because I had to pay $50 to take the stupid test to take Arabic. So I think add every language placement. That's not fair.
Do you have an answer for that question?
I said sure, yeah.
That counts. Okay. Senator Luce.
For the information, last three questions were asking about other languages that you added in the committee.
Okay, so that was a point of information. The points of information are intended to ask questions. Before we continue with that, though, I will point out that it is out of order for individuals to approach other individuals while they are sitting at their seats, just because, just to keep things kind of in control. So, sorry, trust the policy. That's a debatable point. What the committee does with it is not our concern right now. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, this will be referred to the Academic Affairs Committee. Are there any further items for open session?
We have an announcement from Vice President Brody Smith. this, will happen.
Okay, so it is the case of that bill. Can you give a 1 or 2 sentence description of it?
The bill requesting that the future of the Fuseless Act as active policy affecting Aggie veterans and their spouses at Texas A&M University be clarified. And since Brody Smith wrote it, I will let him to give the request.
Okay, that can occur if it is added to the agenda. So all in favor of adding this to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Anything in the chair, that passes. So we'll now move to the period of new business presentation. This is SB 6520.
Howdy.
Aye.
Just a clarification, who knows what the Hazelwood Act is? Okay. Very few of you. For those of you who don't know, the Hazelwood Act is an act that allows disabled veterans to have their tuition and the majority of their tuition fees paid for here at Texas A&M University, but it's also been extended in the past to include their dependents and spouses. Now, the one thing is, this is a state unfunded mandate. Where does the money come from to give these veterans this type of money so they can come here? It comes from us, your tuition dollars. It comes off the backs of every single student who is here. A percentage of their money is taken in order to fund this initiative. This is a good initiative, don't get me wrong. It allows our veterans to come here and become Aggies, and I'm all for this, but I want that money not to come from us. Because for one thing, in this next state legislature, we're looking at a 5 to 10% budget reduction here at this university. We're having to find more and more ways to streamline our funding and make sure that we can make every dollar count. Now, the one thing that the state has not done with this is fund it. We want to make sure that when Stephen Traeger and his lobbying team go to the state legislature in the spring, that they make it very, very clear. We want as much money coming to this university as possible and as much money coming to our veterans as possible, not being eating off the backs of students in order to do it. So this is what this bill is going to clarify and do. Do I have any questions?
Okay, the first question will go to Senator Smith.
Brian Smith, Cortez. Do you know how much money comes off of our backs to pay for veterans who risk their lives for the
It depends upon the college which you're in, and I don't know the specifics. Veterans Task Force member Taylor Sessions will be coming to the LA committee meeting next week in order to clarify that. So if you want to come down and get the specifics, please come, because I don't know.
All right, are there any further questions? Senator Russo.
VP Smith. So if I can get the correct gist of this bill, basically what we're advocating is for the veterans to still be funded in the exact same amount they are, but for the state to take care of that funding, rather than students that are paying tuition at the university, correct?
All right, are there any further questions? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to the Legislative Affairs Committee. Are there any further items for open session?
Mr. Speaker, I have another item.
All right, could you go ahead and give it a short description?
Yes.
He can, because he doesn't have speaking privileges until it's
Right, so this is a bill to start the discussion on giving student credit, course credit for involvement in student organizations and leadership organizations.
Okay, so all in favor of adding this to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. That passes. This is SB 6521. Your presentation starts now.
Howdy again.
Howdy.
What this bill is basically, it's kind of a parody of something we tried to accomplish last year. Last year we tried to do the same type of work here with, we wanted to try to include humanities, international diversity credits. We wanted to try and get several different credits in humanities added to students who are involved in student organizations. It didn't really matter if it all depended on whether or not you were involved in student organizations, officer, your tenure, how long you've been involved, what you've done in terms of service, what have you gotten out of those student organizations. The idea was to coordinate with student activities and figure out a kind of metric to where you could measure students' involvement in student organizations and then apply that and kind of make them eligible for course credit before their involvement. And the reason we wanted to do that was because with state budget reductions and we have more and more lower level classes being stacked together with larger sections, more students in each one, we wanted to find a way to get as many credits applied to students as possible. Now this year after talking to administrators and figuring out what we can actually try to achieve, the one thing we know we can probably get is leadership studies and communication credits for students being involved in student organizations. This is coming from the Core Curriculum Council and also talked with Dr. Ann Kinnemer, who is the Associate Provost of Undergraduate Affairs. She knows her information in regards to this. She's heard the arguments before, and this is actually a reasonable argument we can make towards the administration. I don't see very much pushback from the AOCDs on this, and this is potentially 6 hours of credit that students can get just from being involved in student organizations. My very first advisor at this university, Dr. Tim Scott, told me the real learning takes place outside the classroom in student organizations, so why not get more bang for our buck?
All right, that concludes presentation. We'll now move into question and answer. Are there any questions? Senator Smith.
Will this go against the leadership certificate completion that the board offers, not just the short government, from the university to take up the soft courses, like leadership courses that qualify leadership classes? Will this help that? Will this count the hours for that?
I've emailed Colonel Stebbins about that. I'm not sure, but in regards to your question, we'll try to make it work.
Okay, Senator Owens.
Senator Owens, good Lord, just to clarify, just to make sure I understand, this is going to be for all student organizations, or is there like specific ones for the?
All student.
Okay, just thinking.
All right, any further questions? Seeing none, this will be referred to the Academic Affairs Committee. Are there any further items for open session? Okay, are there any further items for open session? Chair says I have some. He does. Just gonna delay. I'll wait for it, because he did bring those to my attention before, so. Okay, wait, come to order. Okay, please state your item.
This is the SEC Exchange funding bill. It's blank right now, but the purpose of this bill is to allocate money to the SEC Exchange. It was requested by Vice President of University Committee, Samantha Hathaway, and I would like to ask the SVP Baker to summarize SEC Exchange for you all. Speaker is that.
Okay, first we will have a vote as to whether to put this on the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. That passes. We will now move to the presentation. And if he is an author on this bill, then he does not have speaking privileges. However, the Vice President for University Committees.
She's not here, but
She's done with the SJ process, she can be very clear.
can I just make a point of information?
Yes.
Point of information. Can you describe what SEC Exchange is?
The SEC Exchange is an opportunity for the student government associations from all of the different SEC schools to get together and discuss things and that sort of thing, correct?
It's not just a student government conference, it's programs as a whole.
Okay, all right, so.
That's it.
Point of information, where was the last SEC exchange? Like, where did it occur and what happened then?
I cannot answer that. Is there anyone in here who was at the last SEC Exchange?
It was held in Fayetteville, Arkansas, at the University of Arkansas. It was Friday to Sunday, 2-day conference issue out in New Hampshire. There were presentations, speaking sessions from 3 administrators, the president of the Clinton School, or the dean of the Clinton School, spoke just kind of about government in general. There were presentations from each of the SGA representatives of each of the 14 schools, and they told us about initiatives that were happening all over the campus, some of which we brought back and already started as new ideas, which is really exciting. So, are they going around?
Yeah, we're
Is that
good.
just filler?
Yes, she does have speaking privileges because she's not.
So, sorry guys, I was in the SEC Exchange Committee meeting, so that's why I am in a little bit late. I wasn't sure when this was gonna come up. So, they told me a little bit about what the SEC Exchange is, and if you have any questions, you can ask me about that in Q&A. I am the operations and finance co-chair, so I'm in charge of putting together all of the logistics for transportation, dining, where there's people are gonna stay, and also fundraising. So we are estimating that our budget's gonna be about $20,000, and we have about $11,000 in conference fees from the students. That leaves $9,000 in total budget that we need to raise. We are doing a really extensive fundraising campaign, and we are gonna reach out to former students, local area businesses, that kind of thing. And we're hoping to raise about $7,000 in that way, and we are starting that. We actually are literally meeting right now to talk about it, but we need some money for startup costs, and also just things that we need to be able to pay for before we can get those donations in. And that's things like renting the rooms, because all of our events are going to be open to any A&M students. So if someone wants to come hear something about the SEC schools when they give their presentation, we're going to be in a large room, and they'll be able to hear about the other SEC schools when they present about themselves. We're also going to have some different campus events and community events, so we'll have the opportunity for students to interact with these SEC school representatives. And so those type of room fees and that kind of thing are the types of requests that we're going to make as far as money from the reserve fund. And other than that, like, that's pretty much the gist of what type of money we're going to be asking for. If you have any other questions, you can let me know. We're working on the budget. We're getting it finalized right now tonight, and we're going to be working with the finance committee next week.
All right, first question goes to Senator Woolsey.
Senator Wilson, our side. Do you have an idea of how much money you'll need? Like, are we talking $5,000 or
We're
$500?
estimating $2,000.
Okay.
Senator Kingsbury.
Kingsbury Morris, is this, Claiborne County, because I said something about it, is this an SGA thing, or is it maybe like, the people that are coming from SEC schools, are they're student government, or is it just?
Yeah, so this conference is all of the student government associations from the SEC schools. So it's student body president and then 6 other student representatives.
Quick follow-up, if there's time. What's the difference between this and COSTA? Is that COSTA?
This is something that the conference, the SEC conference, hosts itself. So it like transfers ownership each year. Last year, the University of Arkansas hosted the conference, and this year we got selected to host the conference. So instead of one doing it consistently, it's a completely different approach where they pass the responsibility. And it has a different focus. It's just for the SEC. It's about how to unify the conference and unify what the different students are.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, this will be referred to the finance committee. All right. Are there any further items for consent?
One final item.
Can you describe it?
I am introducing NASC, the Non-Academic Student Fee Review Act, which seeks to advocate to the state legislature to change the fee review process at the university level.
All right, all in favor of adding this to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. If the majority ayes have it, you now have a resolution.
The Non-Academic Student Fee Review Act was constructed last year by former senators, senators who are serving in exec, senators who have formerly served in student government in graduate school, and basically it seeks to give student government its elected to enhance student government's elected role in the fee process. Currently, we have the Student Service Fee Advisory Board, which is a state mandated board in some universities, including Texas A&M, and they grant the board the authority to recommend fee actions to the administration, and it kind of undermines the student government role as the elected student body, representative body of the student body. So if you look through the bill, there's been a lot of work that's gone through it, several pages. My plan for the bill is to focus on the first stage, which is to after working with exec and staff, find out what's the best way to transfer that recommendation authority from staff and give it back to student government, like the West few years ago, and that would be the first stage. And then, following in this stage, then student government can start working on the other stages, which seeks to give students a more binding say on actions on fees, whether it's increasing, decreasing fees. That's fee payers. Student government should have a binding say when it comes to these decisions. But the first focus is SPAB, changing to SPAB, transferring that to student government, and that's a lot of work's going to go into committee to try to make that happen.
All right, are there any questions? Seeing none, this bill is referred to the Finance Committee. Are there any further items for review? Mr. Speaker, all right, anyone else? Seeing none, that concludes open session, and we will now move into committee reports. Okay, so for committee reports, the way this works, guys, in order. The way committee reports work is that they're not mandatory. It used to be that we would kind of go down the line, every single chair would stand up, give a report about what was going on in their committee, what time their next meeting was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, we found that took up way too much time because people were very exhausted in their reports. So instead what we do now is that if anyone wants to hear a report or has a question for one of the committee chairs, now is the time for that. However, if not, we will just move through it. So does anyone have any questions or request any information from the committee chairs? Seeing none, we will now move to executive reports. Mr. Supervisor President.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Don't have a ton to report. We are making a lot of great progress on the SEC and DC trip. We've got the leadership team figured out and know exactly what our goals are. I don't know if I think this has been since the last Senate meeting, but emailed all 13 other SEC student body presidents, and they all responded with that they were very much interested in being a part of this joint lobbying trip. And a lot of them responded by saying, I don't know why we didn't think of this before. And so it's cool to see Texas A&M taking the initiative and standing out as a leader right off the bat in the SEC. In addition to that, the Aggies Can is this weekend, and I think this is something that's really cool, the way that we've been connecting with all different parts of campus, specifically the student athletes on this project. And so I think all of you guys are familiar with Aggies Can and the lime green shirts and boxes that they carry around one weekend during the year. And so this weekend is volleyball and soccer games on Friday night. They'll be at Midnight Yale, and then they'll be at the LSU game on Saturday. And so their goal this year is to raise $50,000 for food and 10,000 pounds of canned goods. And so we're having this competition that we kind of created between SGA, MSC, GSC, CORE, Greek Life, and class councils. And our goal is to raise more canned goods than they raise. And I think it's pretty close right now. And you guys have probably seen out in front all those canned goods that are being collected. But if you guys happen to come into the office before this Friday, bring a few canned goods with you. This is SGA wide. I think it's a good unifying effort for us. A few committees have really been getting into it, so really excited about that. But we've got to win this thing. We've got to show everybody why SGA is beyond a shadow of a doubt the best organization on campus. So anyways, $1, by the way, if you decide to give financially, $1 buys 15 cans if you give it to Aggies Can on Saturday or Friday. And so I'm trying to encourage every student that I talk to at least give $1 to Aggies Can. It makes a huge difference, and they've been so generous to give back to the 12th Can, our on-campus food pantry that we're starting this year. And they're really helping us get that off the ground. And so if you guys support their cause, they're actually helping our cause, which goes to support Aggies for living in Monroe County. So that's all I've got for you guys. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the first question is Senator Woolsey.
Howdy, Senator Woolsey, Northside. Is there a way y'all could send out some information or whatever on how people can volunteer to help out with the 12th Can, the on-campus food thing?
We're definitely going to be getting that information out. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to volunteer. That's something that we're really excited about, is opening this facility. And there's a lot of students who care about
under, and I think that there's gonna be a lot of student groups who are interested in volunteering. We don't have that information yet. This has been a pretty fast and furious process, but we will let you know as soon as I know.
Okay, thank you.
And what I'll probably do, Chris, is I'll send an email to the chairs listserv. You're on the chairs listserv, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, great. If you want to forward that information to the rest of staff, that'd be great. Thanks for your question.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for that report. I guess this is my little time to kind of set everything up and report on what's going on in the next couple of weeks. Great meeting, guys. I think this is the first meeting where we've ever really had bills up for debate, up for discussion, and y'all handled that very well. I didn't see any dilatory motions. Every point of information seemed to be, and not all of them were points I could answer, but definitely they had a purpose and were not used for debate. And so thank you for that. I expect an email from you in the next couple of days that kind of summarizes what happened, contains any changes that have been presented. New senators, keep an eye out as well. You will be required to fill out a Google Doc with your credit references, and you'll be assigned into committees very soon. And Speaker Fernandez will talk about that.
Yes, I only have 2 things to address. The first one is for new senators. I sent out an email at the beginning of this meeting that has a Google document. Please fill it out as soon as possible, because that is how I'm going to assign you to a committee. I'm going to assign people by Sunday. And you'll get an email saying, hey, this is your committee. Please fill it out tonight. It won't take you more than 2 or 3 minutes. Second, announcements for everyone. Tomorrow I'm going to be sending out applications for the operations committee. You can be part of the operations committee if you want to. Someone who is not in Senate can also apply. We still need other record archives, so keep an eye on that. Third thing, also for everyone, we had development day at 5. We had the slideshow together regarding parliamentary procedure and absences. I know that some senators still have issues understanding the system, so I'm going to send that out to everyone. That way you can review it and make sure you understand. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Okay, a motion to adjourn is not necessary because we're in I second it.
Yeah, please don't forget to complete and bring me your, that thing. Okay, Speaker Bowen. Myself. Chair Harris. Chair Mandry. Chair Price. Chair Cheshire. Chair Canoe. Chair Sosa. Chair Miller. Senator Golden. Senator Skaggs. Senator Howard. Senator Hoyle. Senator Bailey. Senator Taft. Senator Rhodey. Senator Smith. Rachel Smith. Senator Garr.